Sweet. Okay, so next up, I'm going to introduce. Oh, sorry, I was muted. Kaylee, I'm going to introduce you next, so if you want to wave and let folks know who you are. Okay, so Kaylee Warren is from the Pueblos of Santa Clara and Isleta, participating in the Pueblo agricultural way and works to carry on those traditions while stewarding her family's seeds and farmlands intentionally and sustainably. She is passionate about the protection of Pueblo varieties, reclaiming ancestral foodways, and promoting ecological farming. Hey, welcome, Kaylee.
Good evening, everybody.
And then next up, we have Reina.
Reyna Banteah is currently farming in the city of Albuquerque, New Mexico. Her farm, Tuwia Farm, means hummingbird in the Zuni language. I'm still learning that one. Her farm focuses on keeping Zuni culture thriving by incorporating Pueblo farming techniques and planting and saving indigenous seeds. Thank you for joining us, Reina.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here with you all.
Awesome. Thank you all. Yeah, and so I, as a facilitator, am going to be kind of part of the conversation, and I can just introduce myself. Again, I'm Chasity. I am a farmer, learning to become a seed keeper, learning a lot, especially this year that my health has been impacted. I've been just hanging out with the seeds. And I'm a full spectrum doula, a community birth worker, and I mostly work in Acoma and Laguna. And I'm a poet and a writer, and yeah, so let's get started. Okay, so again, I appreciate there's more people coming in. All coming in. I think this conversation is so vital, especially right now. And I'm just going to get into it. So the first question that I have for the panelists is, what is the role and goals as we emerge into this work as young women identified farmers within our communities? So if you want to participate, just do your hand raise and then I can call you.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, what is the role and goals as we emerge into this work as young women identified farmers within our communities? Basically, what is our role as young women farmers in our Pueblo communities?
I can go first. That's a good question. Thinking about my role, like what immediately came to mind was just to like provide food, good, healthy food for our people. I mean, I think a lot of us are really aware of like the health elements that affect all of our communities. For me, what really stuck out besides like the physical part of our health was like the this also affects our physical part, but also our spiritual, mental, emotionalism, substance abuse. And I have a parent who is just a major substance abuser, and I've seen that like going rampant in my community. And I found myself going down that path too. And it was farming that really had helped me pull me out of that and like really just helped me think about the roots of a lot of the traumas in our community, you know, intergenerational and historical. And so I feel my role as a Pueblo woman farmer is to just help others see farming in that way as a source of healing, and reconnecting with our culture and just our land and our water and just all of that. I think along with that also comes, you know, especially being a woman, just being a role model. In my work as an executive director of Red Willow Center, I have faced a ton of challenges, especially from my own people, specifically in like tribal government and leaders of tribal programs. And yeah, it's gotten to a point where people just don't like the fact that I'm here, that I'm in this position. But I'm still here, still going strong. And I hope I can be a role model for young women and young men in our community to be more accepting of women in higher level positions and to show that we don't need to back down in the face of adversity. So thank you.
Yeah, definitely feel everything that you are sharing. And I think we can all relate. I believe, thank you for that. I believe I have Reina who wants to speak next.
When I first started thinking of farming, it all started from seeds. So the fact that a lot of my community members, back when I was just finishing high school, probably 2004, I kind of noticed that there weren't many farmers in Zuni anymore. They weren't growing like our traditional crops. There were fewer and fewer people just out in the fields, and I saw that, and I didn't even really have any women farmers to kind of look toward as like someone to teach me, or even in my family. So kind of that was what sparked my interest in being a farmer. So many years later, I kind of just dove into being a farmer, a seed keeper, just because I guess my community's survival, I felt like that was something that I was passionate about. So like these 5 or so years of farming, it's kind of I guess my path feels like I came to a place where every step that I've taken to I don't know, to be in a leadership community role is like kind of just it was, I wouldn't say farming is easy, but the path here for me was easy because I felt like there were so many other people just coming together to do this kind of work, and it's really important in our day and age because we're like the kind of the main links that try to hold our communities together. So I think that's kind of what our roles are as women farmers, is to keep those links strong. So yeah, I'm always thankful to know so many other women farmers.
Thank you for that, Reina. Kaylee, would you like to speak or?
Yeah, I think I identify a lot with what you both shared. And I also think, you know, being candid too, I think that's important in this conversation is, you know, to be honest about the challenges. I think this is still taking shape for me in a lot of ways, because I feel like, you know, I was lucky to be raised farming. Like I'm from a farming family, and so I've never known an existence that was without farming. And so to me, it's almost second nature, as an individual, but also I think culturally, like I think I've heard this from a lot of other people that, you know, in our Pueblo lifeways, there's no tradition that exists without farming, that exists without our seeds and our, you know, the products of our crops. So to me, all of it is very, very much intertwined with my being in a way that's inseparable. But I think just because of, you know, the state of our communities, and like I identify with what Reina said about, you know, my community, very few people are what we would consider traditional farmers anymore. I think the main crop for most people is alfalfa. And I don't think that there's much consideration put towards sustainability or seed quality or environmental impact in you know, what the land and the resources for farming are utilized for these days. So I feel like if anything, if I'm looking at, you know, kind of what I would hope my contribution to be is just to, I don't know, just to maybe through some of my efforts and in, you know, helping to provide my loved ones and my relatives with, you know, nourishment, both through the food that comes from our fields, but also, you know, like Tiana was talking about, the spiritual nourishment and the mental and physical healing that comes from being engaged in farming, just to extend those effects out intentionally to folks around me, and hope that that maybe is a good reminder for us.
Thank you. Thank you all for sharing. I think what you all shared leads me into my next question and next idea about community and collective healing. We're seeing a lot in this pandemic that, you know, our communities have just been hit with a lot of grief, a lot of loss, a lot of trauma, a lot of illness. And I think that, at least for me in my experience, when things were really rough with my health, I recently been asked, you know, and I was interviewed in like a long haul COVID documentary, and they asked me what helped you or what sustained you in those really dark times. And for me, it's just imagining what the next season would look like, because I wasn't able to plant this past one, and just imagining that, like, what would it look like a year from now, or 2 years from now, 3 years from now? What kind of role would I have? And it's always been that since the pandemic started. It's always been that thought of being able to go to my garden and just plant and just be with the seeds. And so that is a healing modality for me. So my question for you all, when we think about how we continue to be inclusive, right, in our work, not just because farming is really physical. And I think that we're in this world of mass debilitation. I think we have to really be creative in how we incorporate, you know, all of our community members in this work. And so my question to you all is, what is the role as young women farmers and seed keepers in collective healing and community healing? You know, healing being emotional, spiritual, physical, and all of it. So that's a big question. So take it how you will.
Well, I think what comes up for me in terms of the piece that you talked about around accessibility, I just really would like for our communities and, you know, through our networks and our efforts to try as much as we can to redirect ourselves towards collaborative, cooperative models of farming. Because I think when we have, I think, you know, through colonization has impacted everything, including how we farm. And I think one of the most visible aspects of that to me in my own community is just sort of the individualization of farming, of like, this is your plot and these are your things alone and you're responsible for them alone. I think that's, you know, something that's kind of like a little epidemic of its own. And I think if we can move away from that and move back towards collaborative partnerships and, you know, rebuilding that community in a way that we can delegate and we can share things, I think that that would make it a lot more accessible, because, you know, if we have those structures in place, then we can share work, we can, you know, people can hop in whenever they're able and as it is suited to their abilities. You know, if you aren't able to help out with weeding or at the height of summer, you can help with you know, the gentle work when it comes to harvesting and preserving. So there's just so many, you know, ups and downs in terms of the energy flow of farming. And I think if we were to rebuild just, our networks and connections, we could divvy up all the responsibilities in a way that, can suit and include everyone.
Thank you. I'm gonna pass it to Reina.
Yeah, I agree with Kaylee about being more collaborative. That's kind of definitely something that I've been redirecting my energies toward. Is just as a small business, like starting my business, I was kind of taught to like kind of do it all. Like I had to like farm alone. I mean, I still am because of COVID. But like my whole business structure, I felt like was not really forced to be a certain way, but definitely had to conform with how other farmers were farming. And so for like the past 2 years, I was like, what am I doing? Like the holistic goal that I set for myself is not what I've been following. So I was like, I guess trying to reimagine like starting my business as a place where my community always is first. So yeah, just redirecting how I approach that and kind of different collaborations that I want to make with my own community. I've always felt like coming to the farm is like the first place, or like not even the farm, but just starting your own garden is like the first place to start healing. And I would like to do more workshops on the farm, but I know that like sometimes that's not possible. So just being able to, I guess, use the internet for like online workshops. I've been trying to figure out ways to engage more young students from my own community and also the community school in Albuquerque, Naka. So I'm trying to help them start their school garden and be more available for projects like that. And yeah, sometimes it can be difficult because I need to do stuff in my field, but I also have that I guess the energy to like teach others. So yeah, it's like a tough balance sometimes, but I've always wanted to be able to provide my community with the value of farming and why we should be continuing to farm. So I'm looking forward to working with more school groups, especially.
Sorry, it's been a very long day for me, but was the question about like how our role in community, like collective healing, or okay. Yeah, COVID made it really hard to bring together like the community to like share food and resources, but ultimately my goal at Red Willow and like in the future when I have my own for-profit nonprofit farm, I definitely just want to make it a safe space for people, especially youth, to just be able to come to, like, to volunteer, or if they're like feeling any type of way in any heightened emotion. I feel like it's always good to just be out like in the garden working with food, and it definitely like just grounds you, and it helps a lot. I've seen myself too with just like the youth that we've had in the past. And yeah, I think part of our roles too, and I can't really speak for anybody but myself. I feel like my role in, contributing to that like community healing is just to provide food, good, healthy, clean food for my people, because we've been like just like forced to eat, well, not forced, but given like all of these commodities and this really like like rescue food, and how are we supposed to have a healthy community if we're not, maintaining a healthy body and lifestyle? So I would say, like, yeah, my role in that community collective healing is one, to provide food, and to provide like a healthy space for people, a healthy, safe space for people to talk or just be with the food in my community. And also, I feel to provide opportunity for really everybody to farm, through like providing resources and workshops on the farm. But I feel for young people, like my focus really is the young people, being a young person myself, and like knowing how difficult things can be growing up. So I just want to be able to provide our youth the opportunity to just learn how to grow. And in the future, I would like to provide them opportunity to travel and like learn more, because that was something that was so helpful for me, to travel to other communities in and outside of the country, just to learn and experience, and to see what other people are doing. And also just, yeah, provide a better, well, help them gain the tools that they need, to just survive in this big world that is constantly working against us. So yeah. Thanks.
Yeah. Yes, to all of that. Yeah, I think a lot of times it's frustrating and hard, difficult. I always say hard, difficult to imagine this work and be in this work. I think a lot, like I always go to that idea of how people are like, oh, like plant a garden and like Instagram and all that stuff, but it's like that's not it. Like it's hard. It's really hard. And I guess that leads to my next idea or my next conversation that I wanted to have with you all, which is one, um, again, what I'm learning from my experience is that I needed to like, how do I incorporate rest, right? We were in this conversation among organizations and among our communities, in the idea that rest is so important, and we're seeing that it helps, with illness, and helps us be healthy too. And I think I've learned that in a really difficult way. And so in thinking in that realm of rest, right? um and just thinking about how I think before, when I was really really like going at it, um thinking about how there's just lack of support. There's so on the financial side, on the social side, on the, I don't know, sometimes like just the day-to-day side, right, in this work. And so my question for you all is, how do you see our communities really supporting you and us in this work? And not just like a certain person or certain group of people, but our whole community. You can go, Tiana.
I'm like, come volunteer, man. That's one way I wish my community would be a little more helpful. And I get it, it's COVID, and all the grandmas and grandpas and moms and dads and aunties are like getting after everyone and making sure everyone's staying inside, all this stuff. But even prior to the pandemic, I didn't work at Red Willow, but it was a challenge I had with my personal farm. Like it is a ton of work, and it is a lot of observation of like your land and just the air and insects and water, and like you have to be there, and it requires so much. And once you kind of like learn all of that, of course comes like the heavy labor and like planting and like harvesting and all of that. And it was nice, my family was like helpful, although at times it felt like I was like, we didn't get this done now, and I was like a little forceful. But yeah, I would like talk to friends and just other community members who would be like, oh, like it's so good that you're farming and like bringing back these ways and like preserving these seeds, like good job. And I'm like, cool, come help me, because it's a lot of work, and like I'm super burnt out. Yeah, that's one way I wish, the community would help out a little more, but I totally get it too. Like I was talking with my staff who are some, non-native, and they're like, well, why don't we like try and get the community to come out? And I was like, hold up, like the community is tired too. And like a lot of people don't want to work for free. So I would, and it's hard, like, being like your own farmer, and then even being in an organization, a lot of people assume that nonprofits just have like tons of money to throw around and like can offer like all of this incentive if you come and like volunteer, like monetary wise. And I'm like, I would love to, but right now we're not in a place to do that. Like if you come and help us out, like you're definitely going to get like a big bag of vegetables. Yeah, so I hope, and I wish, and I'm still going to pursue trying to get more of our community members to just come out and volunteer, with like a lot of the hard labor, even just like teaching our youth that I have in our programs things. And I also, I'm gonna keep it super real. I also wish that our community members would just give back a little and understand that not everything is for free. And we can't just be giving out all these handouts. Like, at our farmers market, we offer like a 30% discount for tribal members. But on top of that, like our produce does not exceed more than like $5. So we make it super affordable. We're trying to make it super accessible, but I still have people coming up to me like, oh, well, can I just have this? I'm part of the community. And I'm like, dude, we're trying to also make money too to support the youth here. So I wish there would just be a greater understanding behind just like the challenges many of us have being like organizational leaders or just like entrepreneurs, and just like would understand that, yeah, like we we need to make money because a lot of us have student loans, or we're trying to pay kids, for interning at our farm. Yeah, I can go off, but I'll let the other panelists chime in too.
I think for me, personally, because I don't directly farm back home in Zuni, it's like I've never really asked my community to kind of help me out in any way. But I don't know, just like even air hugs from afar, I think helps right now, because I feel like a lot of separation from my family, my community. It's kind of been a little rough the past 2 years. So I think for me, I really like for there to be better healthcare. That's kind of something that the whole US is kind of dealing with, all the downfalls in the healthcare system. So I know that our communities are like the first ones to not have really top quality healthcare, and the fact that farming is so labor intensive, and I have knee troubles from like years of running, and there's like certain aches and pains that I already feel at such a young age, that I'm like further into the future, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I need to take better care of my body first of all. But I think also as far as like my community, I think that there needs to be like a certain shift in how we approach growing food and being able to provide it for community members. Sometimes there's still some stigma between being able to sell your produce, because it's like something that we never used to have to do, because we grow food and we give it away to our families. And now that it's kind of the modern era where we have to take care of ourselves also, we all have to pay bills that like are super expensive nowadays. So I think just that reshifting of thinking between things that are taboo and things that should be reciprocal, because farming is like really hard work, and it has to be reciprocated in some way. Like I'm always down for trading, I'm always down for helping out other people, but I feel like we have to develop different ways of thinking about how we just deal with economics, I guess.
Yeah, both of your perspectives are very real. I feel like I have a little bit of a harder time wrapping my mind around this question because I don't have a for-profit farm, and I don't farm full time. And I'm also very lucky to have the support of my family. Like my family farms together. So we're able to help each other out as far as the work goes. We're able to, figure that out. I feel like for me, in terms of support, what I keep coming back to though is just like this idea of farming collectives or collaborative organizations. Just because I feel like what impacts me the most is not having representation, and not having sort of networks of support outside of my family, which I think both are very important because on the representation side, as a farmer, we're kind of on the front lines in a lot of ways in terms of witnessing like environmental impacts and the onset of climate change. Like we're in a very heavy drought right now, and I think my community is one of the communities that is like very blessed to not yet have to confront the reality of losing irrigation. And I know in other communities like that's a very real thing that's happening right now. But I kind of see that on the horizon. But I don't see any dialogue happening about how we adapt to it or how do we plan for it. Like how are we preparing for possible changes that will really impact the way that we've come to farm. And also just, land use. Something that's happened for me and my family is we're having to face the possibility that we're going to need to find a new place to farm because of development that's occurring close to where our field is. And this is the field that our family has tended for decades. There is a sewage lagoon being built right across the road from it. And I think, this is something that's real in our communities because there's not really the funding to, support the real high-tech solutions for that kind of thing. But it's real in that it's going to displace active farmers and threaten the healthiness of our crops. So we're having to face drought. We're having to look at the possibility of losing the only place that we're able to farm, of losing our water source. And it's kind of like we're out here alone because there's no support in the community. There's no one you can go to and say like, hey, can you advocate for maybe let's not put the sewage lagoon here, or let's start a conversation about climate change in our communities. That support network is non-existent. But the thing is, so my day job is I work with a nonprofit called the Native American Food Sovereignty Alliance. And through that work, I've been able to see that that's not the case everywhere. So there are tribal organizations all around the country, I think especially in the upper Midwest and the Northeast, that are super active and very impactful in both bringing together farmers and supporting them, but also advocating for their needs and for the things that impact them. But I guess that's just something that we haven't gotten to yet in the Southwest, or at least in Pueblo country. I don't see, there are a few things starting up that are really awesome, but nothing that's impacting me directly yet. So I think if there was anything that would impact, the reality of me being able to farm and like my future as a farmer, it would be something like that. It's just like advocacy and representation, and some sort of platform where I could be with other farmers and we could all, stand together for our needs. Sorry, I feel like I ranted a little bit there, but it's very real.
I'm so sorry that you're going through that, Kaylee. And if you ever need help, call me up because I'll be there and I'll, just the fact that, a sewer pool is being built and therefore you're going to farm and have been farming. Oh my God.
Yeah, it's really wild.
Yeah.
It's wild to think about, but trying to figure it out.
If you need help or a signature, I'm here.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for sharing. Yeah, I think that collaboration is a really big piece of all this. Me and Reina are part of this group, this young farmers group, and we talk about that a lot. And we're talking, we think about how we can support each other across New Mexico, right, as young farmers, and it just would be a dream to support each other as young women farmers, because who else is gonna do it, it's gonna be us. And so yeah, I don't know about y'all, but I'm running out of some screen juice, so I'm just gonna take like a 2-minute break, and the next question that I'm going into is gonna be sort of on a lighter note. So yeah, maybe I'll just want to hang out for a couple of minutes and then I'll turn my video back on. Okay, thank you for joining me and taking a break. Drink some water. Yeah, I'm just so thankful for what you all have shared so far, and I'm glad we can have this space among each other. The next question is Kaylee sort of alluded to a little bit in talking about what this work actually looks like on the day-to-day. And so my next question, and I can give an example, is what is it that you do? So for me, in this time, let's say in the last 3 years before I had to, slow down, it's just been mostly learning. Last year or 2 years ago was the first time I had my own like garden, which I tended to pretty, but I would say like 80% of my time. And just learned from a lot of mentors, and was gifted a lot of seeds from friends and family, and really took care of them, and then planted them, and then grew them, and then processed them. And then this year I'm giving them out, because I gave a bunch to Reina the other day, just so that I can keep that going, and just learning about the seed keeping practices in my community, which are just incredible. I'm learning so much, and writing about it, writing about how much it's helped me understand my role, has helped me heal in my life. And then have provided some sustenance to family, and learning about that process. And then I've been providing some of the sustenance that I've grown, to my doula clients. So like I said, I'm a birth worker, and a lot of my clients that I work with, I gift them a bunch. And this year they've been telling me that they're good. Sorry about that. This year they're gonna, I'm gonna turn off my video. Go ahead. Oh, wait, okay. It's my brother. He's gonna take a shower. Yeah, just providing that sustenance to my doula clients, which has been the best thing ever. Like, to see them want to grow their seeds this year, it's just like, I don't know, that's what life is about. That's what the dream is. So that's my example. What does that look like? What does your work look like for you? It's a lighter question from all the stuff we've been talking about so far.
Go, Reina.
I know, I was like, where do I start? Yeah, I think for me, I have to work part-time at another farm, just to kind of help supplement my income. So that's kind of what I do 2 days out of the week. I went from 3 days a week at the other farm to 2 days this year, just to kind of help my mental capacity to kind of keep doing this long term. And I also kind of work on my own plot, which is like, I feel like still in a transition period, because I've always had to like make plans, and when I don't meet those expectations of myself, I kind of just like get down on myself. So this year I said my plan is no plan, and so I'm just gonna do kind of just go with the flow and get things done as I do them. So that's kind of what this year is teaching me, just to not burn myself out. And I think I have a lot of other projects that I like to do, and being able to incorporate a lot of the teachings I've been learning over the years, and being able to provide that knowledge to my community is one of those projects. And yeah, I also like going outdoor backpacking and camping. So just making more space to do things that I like to do, and just I think that for me, being creative in other ways really helps kind of keep me going. So like Chasity mentioned, she's a writer and she loves to do poems, and I've been working on like a short children's story that I'm hopefully gonna get going, and it's gonna be written in English and Zuni. So that's something that's kind of like a passion project that I've been working on. And also do craft bean to bar chocolates. That is like kind of my hobby spare time thing. So yeah, that's a lot of projects that I have, and I kind of just need to make sure I make the time to like make farming not so rigid, but still be able to like grow food and give to my family and friends and whoever else needs it. So it's juggling act, but I like what I do, so it's worth it.
I can hop in. I guess in terms of what I do, So we plant a larger traditional field in Santa Clara that's composed of primarily squash, chili, and corn. We also grow some melons, we grow chili, really just try to embrace the polycultural methods and just, keep it very ecological and sustainable where we can. And our focus is primarily tending and preserving Pueblo seeds, especially tewa seeds. And so for me, one of my greatest loves is just taking care of our land raised squashes. That's something that fills my spirit with a lot of joy. It's just being in relationship with them. Okay, that's like saying like you have a favorite child, but like I love all of our seeds. But I love growing squash, especially our Pueblo squash. And yeah, so that's the field my family and I work on together and we take care of as our own little tiny collective of sorts. And then in the past year, my partner and I have started farming in Chimayo. We have a little, I call it our seed garden here at our home, and because we have the ability to have a little bit of isolation where I can tend some of our, Pueblo seed varieties in a safe way that protects their integrity. And so it's been a really great opportunity, and I feel really blessed when I'm given seeds. I know I have a safe place to grow them out into an amount where I can plant them in the future in our big field so that we'll have enough to distribute amongst our loved ones. So yeah, that's what I do as far as the farming goes. In terms of future dreams, the other part of my farming experience is in tending native plants. My education is in conservation and botany, and I really love botanizing and being in relationship with native plants. And I would love to incorporate that in our farm work as we can. Yeah, I'm really passionate about ecological farming and the practice of the field being part of the ecosystem, which is includes farming without pesticides, farming sustainably, but I think also just kind of viewing my farming as a contribution to the ecosystem, whether that be in providing floral resources for pollinators, in providing nourishment for the soil, and practicing rotational farming so that we're distributing those nutrients as we can over the years. That's something that I put a lot of thought and intention towards, and that's a big part of what I do and why I do it.
Cool. Thanks for sharing, guys. God, what do I do? Just kidding. Well, right now I am the executive director of Red Willow Center. So doing all the director stuff, making sure that we're funded and our programs are running well. But yeah, in Red Willow, we have what I just kind of call like the three main components of our center, and that's our farm, our farmers market, and our youth programs. So our farm is comprised of about 1.3 outside like growing field. We have 3 greenhouses, 2 of which are heated by a district heating unit called a garn. So the garn is basically like a 4x7 wood furnace. And it has like tubes going under the ground in the greenhouses, and it also distributes like hot air through. So we're able to get like an early start in the spring because Taos has a very short growing season, and we're also able to extend our season well into the fall. In previous years before I was there, Red Willow was growing like year round, but that was really difficult and I feel a little unsustainable, not only because you're like constantly growing and you're not like putting anything back into the soil, but you're also wearing your people out, and then the sun is just not working with you. And your plants grow very slowly. Yeah, we also have a cold storage space. We have bees now. We grow both traditional and commercial crops. So I always make sure to have like a field of just like traditional seeds, Taos Pueblo corn, white or blue. This past year we grew blue, Taos Pueblo red bean, and some Taos Pueblo squash. And we just irrigate that with our ditch, and like just do it all traditionally. For the other commercial crops, man, we grow a whole lot, from like different varieties of tomatoes, cucumbers, beans, turnips, beets, squash, kale, chard, radishes, spinach. We have strawberries that are on their second year now. We have blackberries, raspberries. We put in our garlic in November. I think that's kind of it. There's probably a lot more that I'm missing. So that's our farm. And that works just like right in tune with our youth program. So we have kind of like different sections of a youth program. We have a spring, summer, and a fall. The spring and the fall are very similar, just in that they're like after school programs for kids. So we do Tuesdays and Thursdays from, I believe it's 3 to 5. And they just come and help us, like in the spring, with a lot of the planting. They're going to be helping us get the traditional field ready and learning a lot about water and soil. In the fall, it's more of like seed saving, canning, drying food, closing out our farms, in preparation for the winter. We do a lot of garlic planting in the fall. In the summertime, of course, it's just like the planting, harvesting, processing, getting the produce ready for market. And we also have a CSA, which is a community shared agriculture, I think it is. And we're also going to be getting involved in Fresh RX with the state. So we'll be providing at least 20 to 30 bags of like produce to members of our tribe who are being prescribed a diet, basically. And yeah, our youth program in the summer, we also want to focus on like knowledge sharing with community members. So we're able to pay community members to come in and like talk to our kids really about anything. I want our students to be very well-rounded and know that there's all sorts of opportunity for the future. So yeah, so far we've had like Roxanne Swensel come in, and Henrietta Gomez, another like community elder, and just like teach us about food and how to process a lot of our traditional foods, how to forage for traditional foods, how to cook them. Yeah, we have both male and female speakers coming in, and young people too, and just to like teach our kids and talk to our kids about a whole bunch of stuff, especially life. The third component is our market. So we have that open every Wednesday from 10 to 2. And right now we have 3 vendors, all from the Pueblo, because our community was closed off during the pandemic. So we serve just the Pueblo community right now. So we have 3 vendors who make baked goods, traditional foods, Frito pies sometimes, fried bread, but it's also just like a very like warm and like homey like community space. Prior to the pandemic, we had like the general public there, and it was kind of crazy because we sold a majority of our produce to outsiders. And now with the pandemic, we're just selling and serving our own people, which is great. And I feel like it's made it more like just like, yeah, like a good community gathering. So yeah, my job right now is just making sure all of that is running smoothly. We have a few grants coming in that we've got from First Nations to help us improve our market and the cooking around there, because I noticed it was very bake sale-esque with a lot of like cookies and cupcakes and all of that. So we're going to be working to have a chef come in to show our vendors how to cook with our produce so they can serve that to the people. But yeah, we're getting geared up to start our youth program in April. And yeah, we're looking to hire youth from our community that will help us with our social media and website. We're looking for a market manager and a videographer just to kind of help us record and document everything that we're doing, not only for grant reporting, but really just to show the community like why we're here, and to build that trust with them and show them that like we are intentional about the work that we are doing and we want to be here to help them. So yeah, outside of that, I am a farmer. Unfortunately, with this job that I got about 3 years ago, I haven't been able to farm on my own. With the pandemic and everything, it's been really crazy. But prior to that, I've been farming for about 6 years, started in 2014. And yeah, just learned a lot from my family and other mentors just around the state. And I've really had the opportunity to travel to India and Belize and Italy to learn about other people's like rural food ways and how to protect our food and our seeds. Yeah, so it's been great. And I just want to elevate our youth program to be able to provide those kinds of opportunities for our youth. So yeah, I just learned so much and it's helped me and I want to help our kids. So yeah, this year though, I hope to be farming on my own and incorporating that with Red Willow, because where Red Willow is located, it's very strange. We're like in a cold pocket and we're like 10 degrees colder than like everywhere else around us. So it's a little difficult to grow some of our traditional crops like the corn, which have like 100 like day, lifespan. And so yeah, this year we're really trying to work with not only my land, but 3 of our previous students' land just to help them grow on there and yeah, produce a crop that they could do whatever they want with, give it away or sell it or put it in our CSA and we would buy it all from them. So yeah, that's some of the work I'm doing now. So thanks.
Wow, cool. Thank you all for sharing. Yeah, one of the like 100 things of being a young farmer is just like being able to connect with each of you and learning from you. And, we spent some time this past summer with Tiana and our other homie up in Taos and, have seen a little bit of farming practices in Zuni where Reina's from. And I'd really like to, talk more with folks from Hopi and folks from that way, just because farming in New Mexico is so diverse and it's so, I think a lot of times when I talk to people about like farming, they think that, we all do it in the same way, but we don't. And so I was recently at doing a like somatic healing thing among birth workers among the state, right? Because a lot of our work is a lot of with our physical bodies, a lot of with our spiritual bodies and emotional as well. And we need a lot of that healing coming back to us and that I don't even like the word self-care. I don't know why we use that. But that care, right, of ourselves. And so in that conversation or in that event, we were talking about how, the state is like pushing to grow cannabis. And I was just like, yeah, I don't know, like that conversation, I don't think we've had enough conversation about that and that impact, on we don't even have enough water to grow what we need to grow. And so one of the things that I really love learning about is how, like, what is our role and what are we contributing as, young women who have seen the impacts of 1, lack of water, 2, the death of our seeds, 3, the contamination in our ditches, the contamination in our water, 4, like you were talking about earlier, Tiana, the inability to grow like healthy food, right? And like that's the whole, I think for me is like that's where my farming journey got started, was seeing like, we talk about the health of our communities, but like sometimes we don't even have access to grow this healthy food. And so anyways, it's like a long tangent, but where I'm getting at in my next question or next conversation is, what is it gonna look like to keep farming in New Mexico politically, and also with the climate, right? We're just getting drier and drier. And Kaylee and I had this cool conversation with the Red Nation a while back when we were talking about how, we were talking a lot about like seed back, right, and water back, but we were also talking about what this work looks like in the future as we are seeing a drier and drier climate, and what can we pull from our past. And so, yeah, I don't know. What is my question? That was just a thought. My question is, what does this work look like in the future in New Mexico? Yeah, Reina, can you go?
I think it's mostly the concept of indigenous communities still not being able to give their voice, especially in the political area. You know, we have some good representation now, but I don't think it's enough, especially when it comes to the things that we care most about, which is our land and our water, our air. So I think that going forward, there has to be more stories from our own mouths, and that means that we have to be able to be brave enough and step out and really contribute the realities of what our communities face. And I think, you know, it's easier to do that amongst ourselves, but it's like harder to do that when you're like the only brown person in a room. And especially when they're not really listening. So I think that the more we come together and share these stories, I think that's kind of one of the ways that we kind of build each other up. And I think for more young voices stepping up, I know one of our homies, Cornelia and Taos, just got into the town council, so we were all rooting for her to win. So I think that's yeah, that's just like the things that we have to do is gonna be a little bit more extreme. Like we gotta really push hard for being heard. So yeah, so that we get to continue to do what we like to do and be able to provide our communities with something that is not going to be just bought and sold for cheap.
Yeah, I feel like to be real, I kind of lose a little bit of sleep thinking about this sometimes. It is one of the how to approach this, but yeah, I don't really know that I have an answer of like what is it going to look like. I think the only thing that can be known for sure is that you know, we'll need to be expecting of and prepared for change, whether that be like a 360 change or just like little changes over time. I think that, you know, that's just where the importance of like what Reina talked about comes in. And like, yeah, I think this whole conversation, I've been like, we need farming collectives. And that's just kind of like my main thing is because like, we need community and we need representation and advocacy, because I think, you know, to maintain our lifeways and to protect our seeds, we'll just need to be, you know, strong and assertive of what our needs are and what our rights are also. And so I think, yeah, we just need to be prepared to have to, you know, really kind of stand strong and in saying what we want and need as Indigenous people, as Indigenous farmers, because I think, you know, again, there's in New Mexico specifically, there's no lack of like farming organizations, but it's all for non-Indigenous people. You know, like they have a lot of representation, but we have, I feel like zero basically, because I don't feel any direct impacts from it. And in fact, I think the fact that there's so much representation, but it's not led by or intended for Indigenous farmers does us a massive disservice, because, you know, if no one's speaking for us, then we're not going to be taken into account. And I'm with you 100% on the cannabis thing, Chastity. That's something that worries me a lot, being that my people are in northern New Mexico, and I think that's where a lot of people are flocking for that industry now, and that freaks me out. So yeah, I don't really know what's on the horizon, but I just feel like we need to, get together a little bit more, and really kind of assert our sovereignty and insert our needs.
I'm like Kaylee, I lose a ton of sleep and I get super stressed out and I get really angry when thinking about the future and the climate and water and the gentrification happening in my community that I really see, and the surrounding villages that do a lot of farming. Yeah, one way I feel like I give myself reassurance and prepare myself is one, focusing on the youth. I really want and have brought in some people just to talk about like climate change to them and the importance of land and water and even air, because Taos Pueblo should have a no flying space above where we live, but everyone still seems to fly there anyway. Yeah, so I just want my kids to really be aware of what's happening and the importance of our resources. And yeah, the kids are our future. They're going to be our future leaders, especially the men in my community. They're basically lined up to be like governors or war chiefs or lieutenants, all of this stuff. And I've been telling them, I'm like, you guys are going to be the ones in line making decisions for us. So I'm here making sure that you're going to be making the right decision. So yeah, I think it just comes, educating our youth is extremely important in that aspect. And well, helps me feel reassured and that like we're going to be somewhat okay. Another thing is, and we've been practicing this at Red Willow, is just like making sure, or like training our seeds to be drought hardy, especially our traditional seeds. Like we give very little water to them now, because we know that water is always scarce in our community. And we're just, trying to tweak and train our plants to take less water here and there, and we make sure to save the seeds as much as we possibly can, from those plants that have been trained in that way. So yeah, that's kind of how I get reassurance around it. It's hard being a nonprofit on Taos Pueblo and like hearing your voice heard. This for me personally, I think because I am a young woman who stood her ground and made decisions for the better of the organization, there's a lot of people who don't like me in our tribal administration and tribal government, and that makes it difficult for me to speak out about what I'm seeing as a farmer in the lack of water and just like the pests and crazy things that happen on our land because of the lack of water and other things happening. So yeah, it's a little hard, but I wish and I hope that my tribal government will kind of wake up and see what's happening in the world and how what's happening in the world and even around our community affects us, like with the development and everything and how it affects our water and the snowpack we get in the mountains. I feel like Taos Pueblo feels like they're super comfortable because they won the Abeta settlement, or won the lion's share of water rights in the Abeta settlement. I won't get too much into it because it's a lot. But yeah, it was just like a fight of water between the town of Taos and surrounding communities and Taos Pueblo about how water is used and shared. So yeah, Taos Pueblo got a majority of those water rights, and we're supposed to be using like so many hundreds of thousands of gallons of water for agricultural use, but that's not really happening. And I think it's because there's not that much water in the mountains and it's dwindling every year. So I wish tribal government would like kind of smart up and take more of a stance in these circles that make law and policy around like the environment. Yeah, and right now it feels like it's up to like small like grassroots organizations to do that work. and it's harder for us because like we don't have like, we're not part of tribal government all the time, and even tribal government may not even like us. So yeah, it's scary, but I'm really like putting all my chips in on these kids and the seeds. And yeah, I feel too, by educating the young people, I hope that they can go home and have these conversations with their family and, you know, really change perspectives and get like, yeah, people to think. What's nice about my job is I get the children and grandchildren of those in tribal administration and tribal government. So I'm like, be ready to have these conversations. And I hope that'll change their minds. So yeah, that's me.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for sharing. Reina, would you like to share? You can just give me a no if you don't want to. I can move on to my next question. Okay. Cool. Thank you all for sharing. I'm a little overwhelmed right now. I'm always like, man, what would I ask if I was in a room full of Pueblo women farmers? Like, the questions are endless, right? And I'm sure for all of you in the audience, but yeah, I hope that we continue to have these conversations among ourselves. Before I open it up to the audience, I just want to ask each of you, what is your favorite seed to grow? Mine would definitely be beans, because I've learned that consuming beans helps with inflammation. You know, omegas are super important, oils are super important, and that's what I'm learning in my current illness, is that just got to maintain the inflammation. And so I have a special relationship with the beans. So I'm looking forward to growing a bunch of beans this season. How about you, Reina? What are you looking? What's your favorite seed to grow?
That's really hard. I like all seeds. Probably the Zuni gold bean is like the one thing that I really, it's like my number one priority of keeping going. If I had the opportunity, I would grow a lot more Zuni heirloom seeds, but it's like a little difficult. I don't really know whose seed is pure, not pure, but you know, not contaminated. But yeah, Zuni gold bean is my favorite. Flavor is really good too. It's like the one flavor that I picked out of a blind bean tasting was Zuni gold bean.
I love growing beans too. Like that is my thing. They're just so fun and they're so abundant. And then when you're growing, you can like just graze. You're like, one for me, one for the market, two for me, one for the market. Like yeah, any type of bean is fun, but also peas, like sugar snapper, snow peas, like those are my favorite too. Like I think it's basically, well, you can forage on anything. I just love to like harvest and eat. I like growing leafy greens, but sometimes they can be a process to harvest. But yeah, I like just grazing. So growing anything is nice too.
I echo the bean love. Growing beans is so fun, and I love the harvest process of beans. It's just like, oh, it's so fun, and I love when my family gets together to harvest beans. It's always like a highlight of the season for me. But yeah, this is the hardest question of this whole entire conversation. I like I said, also I love growing squash. Particularly, I love growing toapo. It's our like Santa Clara cushaw. So it's one of those ones that's kind of shaped like a pear, and it's really beautiful and stripy. And I just love growing squash, but I also love that it has it's like such a tangible gift to the ecosystem. Like I love coming up on squash plants and just seeing the flowers like filled with bees. Like that makes me feel so good in my heart, like I'm giving a gift to the pollinators. But yeah, it's so hard to pick a favorite one. I love them all.
Thank you for sharing. Now I'm sad because I can't ask any more questions. I am going to open it to the audience. If you want to ask a question, would you raise your hand on the raise hand option? And then I'll just call on you. Anyone have questions? Otherwise, I'll just keep talking, asking questions. Okay, I have a question or hand raised from Lawrence Walker. Do you want to ask your question?
Hi, yeah, I was just wondering if any of you accept like volunteers or how any of us could help out in any way.
I can go. Yeah, we do take in volunteers, but with the Pueblo being closed, I just need to know if you have been vaccinated or if you've been tested recently, because we have this whole checkpoint going on where they ask you all of that. Yeah, and kind of just like to know a little bit of your background too and see where I can place you. Yeah, I'll need a lot more volunteers from about maybe end of May to August, mid-August. So show me your email.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Yeah, and if you're located in Albuquerque, I do accept volunteers. We do still follow COVID protocols on the farm. Like even though we're outside, we still have to wear masks and stuff. So that's just a precaution that we're taking still. So yeah, but I welcome any volunteers to come my way. Yeah, so it's probably the best thing is just to like email.
Yeah, for me, we don't really, take volunteers, mostly because our Pueblo is completely closed because of COVID to non-tribal members. But fingers crossed for someday in the future where we can welcome relatives and friends to come check it out and help if need be.
Thank you. Is there any other questions? Let me see. Let me browse.
Joseph.
Joseph, left hand.
Hi, should I turn my video on or what would be most comfortable for everybody?
If you prefer.
Okay. Disclaimer, I do not look like that picture. That was like a few years ago. All right. Hi.
Hello.
I had a question. Hello. I had a question out of respect for my lack of knowledge and how grateful I am to learn from all of you today and to listen. I'm really curious about kind of hybrid forms of kind of indigenous knowledge with kind of like this bigger society that we're a part of in different ways. And that's based on my own experience of educating myself about traditional lifestyles based on my family and kind of trying to work on a couple generations of separation from like the Taos and Zuni Pueblo in particular.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really interested in reflecting on the possibilities and the exciting opportunities that we might have as Native folks to kind of learn from other communities and to offer information to other communities. And I want to be sensitive because, again, my approach is defined by my experiences, which are kind of secondhand or thirdhand as far as traditional culture. But what I think is interesting and kind of how I approach my own explorations in these areas is whether there's a way for us to not only navigate kind of preserving and maintaining our heritage throughout colonization and the history of genocide and erasure, but also taking steps to explore and examine how other communities, maybe non-colonized Western communities, are thinking about kind of coming together in new hybrid approaches, right? So it's more equitable. So like we have things to offer, you all have amazing things to offer, they have things they can learn, and then also maybe working together to think of entirely new ways of doing things, since these societies aren't really going anywhere, right? So I suppose that I would be honored to hear if any of you are thinking of those ideas, like new hybrid approaches with other communities beyond the kind of like colonized Western approaches to agriculture that are not specifically Pueblo, but are a both and approach. And have you seen allies like that in your work?
When you say hybrid, what do you mean? Like permaculture and that kind of jargon?
Well, I know a minuscule amount about permaculture, not enough to speak with any confidence on it. So I guess like my approach artistically as an artist is like looking at the ways that contemporary forms of movement and performance and dance can inform, but also be informed by traditional forms, right? And so that's the framework that I'm trying to understand, this kind of living in Chicago, right, as like a city native, like engaging with the broader culture that doesn't necessarily have traditional roots, or at least can be informed by them. So I know it's kind of like a broad nebulous question, but that's kind of what I'm getting at, is like, have you all identified or worked with or had the opportunity to put your heads together with other folks that are thinking that may not be indigenous or traditional, but are willing to partner with you all and think of entirely new hybrid ways of sustainability, of water rights, anything like that?
Thank you. That's a really good question. And if I may, ladies, first thing I'll say is a lot of, now I'm like, should I say it? I'm going to say it. So a lot of like these hybrid ways of learning, or like things that are rebranded now, like permaculture and regenerative agriculture, those are all actual native practices that I think are just being rebranded to be more accepted and acceptable by the greater white society. And to be completely real with you, like I'm all about allyship and finding like intentional, proper allies to help expand our work and just to get people away from this like white supremacist capitalistic mindset. But I am very leery about working with non-native organizations and non-native people, because we often get tokenized and we're often there just to check a box, just to say that they are being equitable and inclusive. And oftentimes, and I'm speaking from experience here, like our voices are not heard and we are just there just to check a box. And so I've experienced that in my community of Taos. And I have really kind of withdrawn from working with a lot of non-native organizations here, because they see me as that. They try and tokenize me. And it's so funny, at the beginning of the pandemic, all of these nonprofits and organizations in Taos got together to see how we can help other farmers and give food to people. And it was just quickly like turned into how can these organizations help other organizations? And a lot of these organizations here are led by all white people. Their boards are all privileged white people. And yeah, I was like, I don't need to be a part of this. I can actually be doing work in my community. But come to find out, like they still sent me the notes and all of that. And they had Red Willow listed as an organization that has access to money that they don't because we are an Indigenous organization. And I was just like, oh, hell no. So I'm really guarded now in who I work with. And yeah, I just got to get to know you for a good while and know if you are intentional about this work before I even think about working with you, because it's very hard, you know, it's very disheartening. And yeah, I wish there were allies out there who are really doing that kind of like racial equity work. And it's funny because like New Mexico actually does offer a lot of resources in that, specifically through the Santa Fe Community Foundation. Yeah, so I kind of feel like there's no excuse to like be this kind of crazy woke white person. There's all these resources out there to learn, and you know, I'm so glad that you're here and you're asking these questions from us, and we can be really real with you. So I hope I answered that. If I didn't, feel free to shoot me an email. We can talk more if you need.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate, with all respect to your experiences, I'm just here to learn and to listen. So thank you.
Mhm. Thanks.
Would the other panelists like to answer that, or should we open it to another question?
I think in the grand scope of things, I think Tiana really hit it on like right on, because I think a lot of our work is based on our own individual communities. So like I can only speak for myself as a farmer, and I don't necessarily feel like I don't represent my whole community, you know. So it's like in each of us as coming from individual communities, we don't all represent our whole community. So I think sometimes like it is important to be guarded in certain aspects, because like a lot of our communities are sacred to us, and that's how they should be portrayed to others, especially from our own selves. Be respectful of our own people, and you know, sharing only what we think is appropriate for like the outside. You know, I do a lot of waffle garden workshops, and I think that something that I can offer to the greater community without having to really, you know, share too much about Zuni culture, like the, you know, the real sensitive sides of it. So yeah, I think that's a good question. I have to think more about it too.
Yeah, I don't think I have anything to add. I think that you both did a really good job covering everything that came up for me. Yeah, well, I guess one thing is the thing that I always want to tell people is like, if we're all working towards the same thing, instead of, you know, wanting to learn, well, and this mainly speaks to the folks who come from those communities that Tiana was referring to. And I've had a lot of interactions with that community, and it can be very toxic. But I always want to say, it's just like, instead of trying to co-opt my traditional practices, everybody just plant native plants. Like, let's just tend the ecosystem itself. Like that, to me, is the best way. If we're all trying to look at, you know, farming equitably, like let's all just direct our efforts towards nourishing our ecosystem first and foremost. So I don't know. That's what I always want to say. Is like, let's just, maybe why don't we start with planting more native plants?
Thank you all for answering that question. There's so much to talk about in that. in that regard. And I think this is why I think our conversations among us as Pueblo women farmers is so important, because we're holding so much, there's so many layers because of who we are, right? And our identity, and our relationship to our relations to the seeds and to the land. Yeah, which like it's the reality of that is so different amongst, it's so diverse and different amongst like even each Pueblo, right? And, like there's so many different practices. And anyways, I'll stop talking. The next person who has their hand raised is Dawn. Do you want to ask your question?
Hi, everyone. I'm Betu Ashte. Good day. I'm from Ocheti Shakoin territory, and so I'm just really glad to be here and listen in to all the work that y'all are doing. And I heard Tiana talk a lot about youth work, which just warms my heart because, they're the next gen that are going to do all the work. And so I'm just curious about what that looks like in your territories, and how the information y'all have are carrying it forward. Tiana talked a lot about it, but I'm curious to hear from everybody. Thank you.
I think for me, as a Zuni Pueblo member, I've been fortunate to get to know some of the Zuni youth organizations, the Zuni Youth Enrichment Program. They're doing a really good job spearheading their agriculture program, and just being part of their network and collaborating with them. They are doing like a small food sovereignty weekend, I guess. So I'll be part of that. Hopefully, I'll be in person next month or so. So yeah, just being involved with projects like that, and just finding little ways I can contribute, whether it be providing like webinars for student classrooms, or going out helping start school gardens, or even providing seeds for some of the gardens that they're starting up. I ordered like a bunch of decompostable seed pots so that I could give some plants to whoever wants to grow in their own garden. So hopefully I'll have those ready in time for that gathering that they're gonna have. I think like the most important thing is just being able to share our stories with the youth. I think that's where they gain the most appreciation about what we do, is being able to tell them, kind of what we do and why we do it. And even better if they show up at the farm or get their hands in the ground and do their own gardening. I think that's the most powerful thing we can do.
Yeah, I don't have a ton that I can add to this part of the conversation. Maybe just like more dreams. I think that this is a huge gap in my village's, attention span, or gauge of as a priority. I don't really see that there is much support for young farmers or people who are just young and trying to figure out, like, what's my contribution to our village. There's no framework in place for those folks, and there's no really, like, if you're kind of, the unfortunate thing is, like, if you're not from a farming family, if you don't have access to seeds or land, you're kind of just like out of luck. So that's like a really sad and concerning thing to me. But I have hope. Tail Women United is awesome, and I can see doing a lot of work and trying to spur these conversations. And hopefully that will catch the attention of young folks, and then they'll kind of know who they might be able to go to if they have questions. The other thing that happened for my village is pretty recently, I think, our tribal school became completely controlled by our tribe. So it's no longer a BIE school. It's something that we have a community school now. So there's not anything I think in place right now for traditional farming to be incorporated in the learning there, but at least there's the possibility, because our tribe is taking, asserting sovereignty over our kids' education. So I have like all my fingers and toes crossed that someday soon they'll start bringing that into the learning there. But it's a gap, unfortunately, in my village. But like I said, I have hope.
I've seen that in my village too, Kaylee, where there was like just a huge gap in helping young people and just like being there for young people. Red Willow has always had a youth program, but Red Willow was more focused on like being a demonstration garden to the community to show how to use these new technologies like a greenhouse and drip tape and stuff, and provide workshops. But I'm really, as the new ED, wanting to shift the focus to the youth because yeah, they need more opportunity. And I found what was really successful in just helping us work with them is just providing consistency, like showing up when you say you are going to, and like doing things that you say you're going to do, and just being there. And that really builds trust with them and their families. And that's what you'll need, is that trust, just to like do anything with them and have them believe in you and have them even believe in themselves. So yeah, like I just want to provide a safe, healthy space for them at our farm, and teach them all I can about growing food and processing it so they can never go hungry, and they can use land if they have it, and water to be able to provide for their families or create an income for themselves. I know that every student in our program isn't probably going to be a farmer, but I like to see like where they gravitate towards, like in our farm or market, or like being a leader in our youth program, just to see like what they're interested in, so I can just help them along their journey. Like if someone wants to be a beautician, I'll help them find a resource. If someone wants to be a scientist, I'll help them transition to another internship, or find a scholarship to help them on their way. Yeah, I freaking care about these kids, man.
Thank you all for sharing. I'm like super inspired, and I've been sort of like not in the dark, but just thinking about how we go from the macro to the micro sometimes too, and for me, like that's just been focusing on the seed, just focusing on cleaning one seed or the next seed, and those acts are important too, and it's about being creative. I think a lot of our work as Pueblo women farmers is just being creative. Like we had to somehow sustain ourselves, right, in this work that I think the world doesn't want us to do, but we do it anyway. And so with that being said, I'm curious for the audience, as we're wrapping up our conversation in the next 7 minutes. One thing that I've been thinking about this year is how are we giving back to ourselves, and how do we give back to those who provide us food, who provide us a lot of healing, who provide us a lot of mentorship on how to be in relation to the land. And so yeah, if y'all could drop in the chat how you think you can support us as Pueblo women, please do, because I think we always need that. We need that reassurance, we need that support. So yeah, and with that being said, if there's any final reflection from anybody in the audience or from the panelists on that topic in particular, how we're showing up for us, me, Tiana, Reina, and Kaylee. Let us know.
I just wanted to say thank you to Chasity for being our excellent moderator and friend. Know that you're just always try to be there for everybody, and I'm glad that I get to be there for you as well.
Yeah, thanks, Reina and Kaylee. Oh gosh, and Chasity and Nathana, like everybody who came here too. It's just been really great. I love spaces like this where we can be real with each other, because I feel like being real and being in uncomfortable situations or with uncomfortable questions provides space for a lot of growth. And I think we need to have a lot more of these. I will say, and I don't know if this applies to everyone because I don't know everyone's backgrounds, but I think what needs to happen to support people like us is grants and loans and all of these things that could help us need to become decolonized. Yeah, we know how to help our communities. We know what's going on, and I'm speaking definitely from a director's perspective, but I feel that grantors need to be more accommodating with the people who live in their community, and also there needs to be more unrestricted funds going out, because we need to pay the people who are actually doing the work. And we know what's best, and we know what programs to create and who to help. So yeah, all of these greater systems and institutions really need to learn how to decolonize themselves, and just reflect. So yeah, I'll just say that. But thank you to everyone who attended, and to all the panelists, and our amazing moderators. It's just been a great evening.
Yeah, I'll share a reflection too. I think something that comes up, just to share with the audience of folks who joined, I think I really appreciate first and foremost you and Chasity for, bringing this space together, where we can be like very real about our experiences. I think it's very easy to romanticize, what we do, and to romanticize farming. And there's so much work, physical labor, and challenges to overcome to get to the really cute corn pictures that we post on Instagram, myself very much included. But yeah, and so I just wanted to reflect to the audience, we did share a lot of challenges to overcome in this conversation, but I also just want to provide that little bit of encouragement also. It's hard, but it's also probably the most rewarding thing I've ever done, and something that my whole life is structured around. And our communities need more farmers. They need, folks who are just, conscious about our ecosystem, who want to protect our foodways and want our communities to be healthier. So even if you're not physically farming, just being aware of traditional farming and traditional foodways is such a huge contribution on its own. So yeah, and if you want to start farming, even though we've talked about how hard it is, I feel like this specific time, there's a lot of resources, and we have the ability to connect via social media through various organizations we work with. So myself personally, I try to I'm always available for questions from other Native Pueblo folks who want to know about, how to get started. So yeah, just thank you, Kunoa, Tiwu, and Chasity, and I hope that everyone who joined wants to plant some seeds now.
Thanks, Christina, for the awesome message. She put a nice little blurb in the chat. Yeah, if anyone has any questions or wants to volunteer, I think I added my email to the chat. So feel free to reach out.
I can't wait to go back to all of your places again briefly. Thank you all for joining. I appreciate you, and look forward to a care package coming soon. And support your women farmers. Seed back, give our seeds back. Have conversations about water realities, all the good stuff. check out all the love y'all have in the chat. It's popping.
I know, it feels so good. I'm like, a lot of our work is thankless, so thank you.
Y'all mind if I take a photo? Is that okay? I think the only faces are us, so yeah.
Sure.
Oh wait, look like a door. Yay, thank you everyone. Thank you for coming all. Expect the next one in April with people older than us, wiser than us.
Everyone that we learned from.
Yeah, I'm excited. Who do y'all think I should have? I was thinking Roxanne would be cool. Nata would be cool. Y'all know Lillian Hill from Hopi?
Yes, I know Lillian should be great.
Lillian is awesome, and if you, Lillian's my boss, so if you need help making contact, I'm happy to make the connection.
Yeah, let her know. I'll email her, but just give her a heads up.
Cool. Yeah, I'll let her know.
Who else am I thinking? Y'all know Teresa Pascual from Acoma? She's awesome. I would love to invite her. I learned a lot from her. But yeah, I want to invite like 3 more people, maybe have a big panel. So anybody else you think would be good?
I don't know if I sent you a list, but Clayton Bracape, I feel so bad because I don't know his wife. I keep forgetting his wife's name. But yeah, she's like his A1 from day one, the one who's been there helping him with his organization like all the time. She's a great farmer.
Yeah, her name is Margaret. She's awesome. You should totally reach out to NAFA and see if she can hop on.
Yeah. Or Nathana, what about Ray's mom? She's super cool.
That'd be cool too.
Yeah. I hear like so much about her and like I'm just like I need to like talk with this woman. I want to hear from this woman.
She works closely with Roxanne too.
Oh, cool.
I want to invite, do y'all know Janice Lucero from Pueblo Resurgence?
I feel like
She's really good.
I don't know her personally, but I know that she's pretty active with her farm on like Instagram.
Same.
Yeah, I want to invite her. She's really cool. She seems really cool.
Cool.
Yeah. So look forward to that if y'all want to join as participants.
Heck yeah, I'll be there.
Thank you all for coming, and I hope to have more conversations. Maybe we can organizationally arrange that because I think these are really important, especially to just have space, you know, for us to process and to talk and to dream. Very, very important. So
I'm going to stop the recording.
okay.